Hey everyone, welcome back to Beyond ARTV. My name is John and you're watching The Think Tank, which is my new name for my series Thinking Out Loud. No, Ed Sheeran didn't try to sue me, I just think this sounds better. Thinking Out Loud, aka The Think Tank, is where I sit down and try to kind of flow with the stream of consciousness about something that has been on my mind, and today, that is rock bands. Once again, I love rock and alternative music and the current state of the genre. What's going on? What is going wrong? What could we do better? And why am I upset at some of the bands in said genre? I'm gonna try to get through this without naming that many names, although you'll probably know when it's implied and when it's not. There's obviously a lot that's been going on in recent years, especially like 2018 leading into 2019. There's just been this heavy detachment, I feel like, from rock bands from the genre. It's like they don't want to be rock anymore, and they keep talking about how I'm not inspired by the genre, or the genre is not alive, it's not doing anything, it's not going anywhere. Well, for one, I hate that statement because so many smaller bands are out there trying to gain ground, trying to gain your attention, and if you're missing out on that and you're overlooking that, that's on you. And number two, to the point where you say that you're not inspired by anybody in the genre, go out and be the inspiration for someone. I don't understand the type of mentality that says, we're a band, we're creating, and we're in this genre. Now, we don't want to put ourselves in a box, obviously, and we don't want to say we can never experiment. But I feel like so many bands, now the word experiment means go pop. It means go full on pop, unabashedly, don't look back. Hey, listen friends, pop is not inherently a bad word, and if they're going to do it and still retain elements of their roots, then fine. I recently did a video about rock bands that have gone pop, and some of the ones that have pulled it off successfully. Those are not the only ones, so don't think, oh, John's only out here defending Paramore, Kings of Leon, etc., etc. That is not the case. There are many bands that have pulled off the transition smoothly, and they find a way to incorporate guitars, other elements, synthesizers, pop hooks, whatever else into their music. But do you know in the past year and a half, probably 2 to 3 years even, how many artists have dropped their worst album as their most recent album? There's so many bands that I can think back to and I could say, the last thing that they put out, that was unfortunately their worst record. And I've seen a lot of that with my series Ranked, but I've also seen a lot of that outside of my discography rankings, just thinking to bands. And I say, unfortunately, it boiled down to the fact that they just tried to cut loose and experiment, and it turned into this pop flop, and I'm not that interested. So why do bands feel uninspired by the genre when they could reignite something and they could push it back out there? There's excuses for rock elitists or anybody else that thinks the genre is superior to others, and that's an entirely different debate. I am definitely not saying that rock is better than anything else. It's my preferred genre, sure, but I don't think that it's necessarily better than hip-hop, better than EDM, or whatever else. We all have our personal preferences. Bands these days seem to be trying to hold on to this straw, like how do we retain some sort of relevancy? And they're like, I know, we flip on the light switch and then we go towards some hip-hop sounds, or else we throw on a rattling trap hi-hat on one of the songs, and then it sounds terrible, maybe doesn't match our sound, but it doesn't matter, but kids are gonna vibe to it and say, oh, I'm definitely hearing a Travis Scott influence on this or something, when in reality it's just the easiest go-to move for really anybody that's trying to sound like modern stuff. If you're trying to experiment, then actually experiment. Actually do something that feels dangerous, and maybe that is what pushes the genre of rock forward. Find a way to incorporate instruments. Find a way to incorporate other things about your style that were great in the past, and then maybe concoct something that just does something that we really haven't heard before, or else not in a while. But instead, it seems like everybody's content to just have this middle of the road, very dark, very bleak sound that just sounds so dime a dozen that it's hard to separate at this point. Which band is which? We hit this really weird state of rock and alternative rock about 5 to 6 years ago. Lorde and Imagine Dragons and other artists like that started crossing over to the alternative and rock charts. And a lot of people thought to themselves, well, this is neither alternative nor rock. And now, fast forward to 2019, and we've got somebody like Halsey and these electronic artists that are charting on the alternative songs chart. And if I scroll through there, I don't even recognize half the names, and when I do look them up, I think to myself, well, this sounds more like adult contemporary, or this sounds more electronic or like it would be served to some other type of station, and now we're just accepting that as alternative. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with the evolution of the genre. In fact, I loved the period that the genre went through between 2013 to 2015, where there were some synthesizers worked in, the retro 80s feeling, and still some guitars in the mix, some compelling lyrics. But now, it just feels like everything is trying to be airy, minimalistic, kind of dark, kind of serious, and then maybe a catchy hook. But it's really just not the same, and I look to the lack of inspiration from the bigger acts. I am not blaming the small bands here. This is on the big titans out there. Step it up, get inspired, and if you're not inspired, be the inspiration. Carry the torch for somebody else instead of sitting here whining about why rock isn't inspiring or why rock isn't great anymore. Make rock great again, and maybe it'll actually advance as a genre and just not die off in the mainstream entirely. I know this sounds like a save rock speech, but it's really not meant to be so. I'm just tired of the excuses that I hear from these bands. They try to hype up their new material as their best work yet, and we were so creative with this one, when if you listen to the album, you just get into it and you're like, this sounds like some top 40 BS. This sounds like something I heard from One Direction or Future, and that's not exactly what I would want to hear from a rock artist if I was the fan. But then again, people's definitions of things are changing, and that's kind of interesting, but also a little bit sad to see. Sure, rock has changed many times over the years, but there's always been one thing at the core. There is a band there, but now it feels like the individual artist is starting to be classified. Like people will say, oh, Lorde is a rock artist, or Halsey is an alternative artist, when you listen to their music and you're like, these are not either of those things, not speaking even to the quality. Lorde in particular, I'm a huge fan of, but she's not rock by any stretch of the phrase. And now she's out here getting nominated for alternative and rock awards, and it's probably confusing to the kids who are getting into the genres, and you're thinking, oh, I guess this is alternative. I guess this is what rock music is. And it's not that. That's a discussion for a different day, but still. That's it. I'm going to cut off this episode of The Think Tank right here. Agree or disagree, I hope you were able to understand the points that I was trying to make today. I want to like the new material from these bands, but it's so sad that I feel like so much of what's coming out these days, I look to certain bands or artists, and I think, oh, what's their worst album to date? It was their most recent, not just because it's the newest thing, but it's because it's the one they didn't really put that much effort into, or because it was such a drastic change in sound, or a clear deliberation towards something top 40, or trying to aim for a bigger market. And it seems like a lot of the time when they do so, they kind of flop on the charts. But I guess nobody learns the lessons. Hopefully someday we'll see a revitalization of the genre. I hope that you guys enjoyed this discussion today. Please drop a like on the video. And of course, if there's other topics you'd like to see me discuss in this kind of think tank format, then let me know down below. If you'd like to help support the channel financially, then please tap the top link down below or else the annotation in the corner of the screen. It greatly helps me make content on both of my channels each and every month. If you want to see another thinking out loud style video, then tap right here or tap here for another recent video. Socials in the description, and I'll see you soon for more on Beyond ARTV.